What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do this. We explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. The Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley, and I'm really excited for my guest today. He's really big into personal development. He's all about kind of finding alignment with your conscious and subconscious mind. So I think we're going to have a really great conversation. So definitely stick around. First, couple of quick announcements. First of all, head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find a lot there. You'll find ways to connect with my lovely guest. You'll find ways to connect with me on social media. You'll find ways to buy my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by 3 people from the film The Secret: Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, Bob Doyle. It was also endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and many others. Let's see, you'll find ways to sponsor the podcast there as well. And you'll find a link to my website. Beyond this podcast, I also have 2 television shows, so check them out. They hit a little bit more the spiritual, metaphysical side. So if you're into the woo-woo, definitely come see what I'm up to over there. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are doing massive things in personal development. We have events, virtual and live, pretty much once a month. I was just on stage with Dr. Joe Vitale, John Asseroff, Jim Quick, Joseph McClendon, Sharon Lecter, Les Brown. So there's amazing headliners, amazing panels. The whole network is really incredible what we're doing. So it's a movement. Come be involved. All right. So with me today, I have Manny Fiteni. I didn't even ask you how to pronounce your name. Did I do that right, Manny?
Well, I say Fiteni, but it's
okay.
right.
Well, we're going to say it like you say it. So I have Manny Fiteni with me. And Manny is a dynamic leader and innovator in personal and professional development, currently serving as the CEO of My Growth Corporation. With over 3 decades of experience in the corporate world, Manny has transformed his extensive knowledge into actionable strategies that empower individuals and organizations alike. At the helm of My Growth Corporation, Manny has developed a unique ecosystem that includes Mind Growth 360, which is a vibrant social network dedicated to personal growth, and Creators Agency, a digital platform designed to elevate brands. His approach focuses on mind congruency, a principle he elaborates on in his book, and hopefully will on the podcast as well, which emphasizes aligning the conscious mind with the subconscious mind to bring about what is known as a focused mind. This alignment allows individuals to no longer be sabotaged by their own past programming. So welcome, Manny. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you very much.
So I always start my shows off the same way, and that's by asking my guests, what is your origin story? So what put you on this path to want to focus on personal development?
I think there's several points in my life, and everybody has these points that kind of gets you started. In the book, I write about it in high school. I was ran about, I'm not sure what you call it in the States, but it's what we call year 11, the second last year of high school. And I went to a Catholic school and we had religion lessons, etc. But it wasn't a religion lesson that set me off. It was the principal brought a new program that he wanted to purchase and he wanted to test with us as a group. And essentially the video series talked about why some people are successful and why others aren't. And I don't remember everything about it, but I remember it started me on a path of thinking of, so I could be more than what I am today. And it gave stories and anecdotes of how people were able to do certain things and how other people can't do it. And I think that's where the start was. When I left school, I eventually did a lot of reading. I mean, we're going back a little while, so there was VHSs and things like that. But effectively, I then went on a path of learning as much as I could, wondering why some people, and it wasn't necessarily academic ability, it was another thing that was happening to them that made them successful.
It's really interesting that something in school sparked it. So what was that other thing that they had that made them successful?
Well, it was this program the course itself.
No. The last thing you said was some people have like a thing that makes them more successful.
Okay, sorry. Well, this is what I talk about mind congruency. So I believe that, if you truly want to create transformation in life, you need to understand that there's almost a battle that we have, and sometimes we think it's with the outer world, but it's really with the inner world. So most of science accepts that we have a conscious mind and we have a subconscious mind. And one of them comes before the other when we are born, and that's the subconscious. So everybody is born with a subconscious. It develops over time, but it isn't there. But the conscious mind isn't there at the start. Now, the conscious mind is the one that recognizes that we exist. It can see that we exist. It has a short-term memory. It's analytical, etc. The subconscious is almost like an operating system, and there's a little bit more to it. And I know you talk about spirituality as well. I also believe it's the connection to the soul consciousness. But to put that aside for a moment, the subconscious is also, as I said, the operating system. It determines how we operate. It determines, it has our long-term memory. So it's almost our storage bank and the operating system like a computer system. The problem we have as human beings is that the subconscious wasn't originally necessarily even programmed by ourselves. It was programmed by our influences. So you mentioned earlier that you have a toddler. Your toddler is going to be influenced by you, and you have a partner or a husband. It's going to be influenced by them. It's usually the main carers are the ones that are the influencers. So as an adult, and I've had this conversation with lots of people, as we get older, or when we were younger, we usually say, I'm never going to be like my mother when she does that, or I'm never going to do what my father does who does that. And then as they get older, we tend to copy them. But they're the things that we hate in another human being or that person, but we do it because that's part of our conditioning. And the example I give, and I've given many times before, is New Year's resolutions. When we say, I'm going to become fitter or I'm going to do something different, and we set off on our path and we go take a gym membership or whatever we end up doing, and then 6 weeks later, we're just back to our normal habits. And the reason being is because we have this conditioning in the subconscious that is fighting the goal that we're trying to achieve, the transformation that we're trying to achieve. And until we firstly understand that we need to align the two, then we are going to sabotage ourselves through most of our lives.
Yeah, totally. I used to own a yoga studio, and every January it would be packed, and then by March it would be back to the regulars, like every single time.
So exactly the same story.
So how do we go about aligning our subconscious and conscious mind?
A lot of it has to do with awareness. So
has to do with what?
To do with awareness. It's being aware. We don't even realize how we operate. we're not, because it's in the back. So we do things, we say things, we react to things. So, for some years, we talk about emotional intelligence and how people react to things. Well, this sits in the subconscious. This is past conditioning. So, when someone's having a tantrum and they're 50 years old, sometimes there's a good reason for it, but sometimes it's, if it's a regular thing, it's because it's a trained thing. It's something that's been conditioned in them. And so they continue to do it. So how do we change it? Well, awareness, as I said, is the first thing, is understanding that we are operating in a certain way. And when you start to operate it and bring it to the surface, then you start to catch it. So I call this a catch and replace. If you go to do something and let's say it's not the way you want to say it or the way you want to operate as a person, then you need to be aware of it, catch it, replace it with another habit. Repetition is one of the ways that we change our minds. If you're wanting to change other people in a positive way, it's done through metaphors, anecdotes, etc. So you talked about with your book, the people who endorse you from The Secret. The Secret was an anecdote or a metaphor. I'm not saying there's no truth to it. What I'm saying is Rhonda Byrne used great storylines to engage our subconscious, because the subconscious operates in symbols. It's symbolic. So metaphors, etc., work really well. And the reason they work so well with the subconscious, besides the fact that it is symbolic, is that the conscious mind is like a gatekeeper. If I said to you, Chris, I want you to do this, and you really were fighting it, then your conscious mind is basically saying, no, I'm going to stop you. I'm not listening. I'm not going to go any further. If I want to bypass it, then I'll tell you a story, something that you might relate to, and something that, and what happens when you tell a good story, and what I mean by a good story is one that engages the conscious mind, but behind the story is the symbolism that you want the subconscious to pick up on. And that's why great salesmen are really good. That's why great speakers on stage who tell stories are really good, because once you start listening to them, your conscious mind is engaged. It is no longer blocking the subconscious, and the subconscious picks up what it needs to pick up.
It's like Tony Robbins and Mary Morrissey and like all the greats like that. They tell stories more than they do anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's a reason for that. And somebody like a Tony Robbins knows all this anyhow. He's trained in all this. So he knows all this, that telling a great story will create change in another person. So it's a matter of changing a state to get to where the operating system actually operates.
So what about like repressed emotions? How does that feed in? Because I know a lot of the stuff that we just kind of like push down can create blocks without even knowing
Absolutely.
it. Like I think a lot of the work has to be to kind of like excavate all that stuff that's blocking you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I agree totally. So I won't get the word right, and I won't try it because it's a Hawaiian word. But effectively, my understanding, and I think I talk about it in my book, is that they refer to us. It's like being like a little black bag. So when you have a negative, like a trauma in your life or something extremely negative, rather than finding a way to release it from your subconscious, which affects your overall body, you push it down. And then something else comes maybe 10 years later and you push it down. But sooner or later, the mind has to release it. So it's important that you learn how to release it or find someone to help you to release it. Because this, I believe, and I'm sure in your spiritual work that you've done, this is where a lot of our things, and I'm not going to try to back it with science because I think science may not be going necessarily in the right direction, is that this is where our cancers are coming from in a lot of cases. I'm sure there are other external things, but we have this dis-ease because our body reacts to our mind. Our subconscious controls all these different things. You know, sometimes we can't explain it, but then if I said to you, can you explain to me exactly how your little finger got moved and you didn't, something didn't touch it, it was just a thought. Our thoughts create things. Even our negative thoughts create things. So to answer your question, or hopefully I have answered your question, is that all this pushing down of the negative part into the subconscious becomes part of the operating system. And you need to find a technique or a way of releasing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially about disease in the body. I mean, there's so many great books about it, like The Body Keeps the Score and, so many others. And it could be quite literal, right? Like sometimes if someone has like stomach issues, it might just be that like there's something in your life you're having trouble stomaching, right? Like just like paying attention to these signs from your body, because I think that it is messages from your body telling you something's out of alignment, or you're not on the path you're meant to go on, or you're not paying attention to something you should be.
Well, I think we try to overthink it when really it is something that has been, even ancient civilizations have probably known the answers to it, but we've tried to turn it into some big science or something else, or a new business.
You mean with like Western medicine?
Yes. I think we've turned it into such a business that we've moved away from the health component of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no money to be made. So.
Right, like the buzzword going around the States right now anyway is that it's the sick care system, not the healthcare system, because it keeps you sick.
Haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Very cool. So beyond awareness, is there anything else that will really help people kind of undo this programming that maybe isn't serving them?
One technique is actually doing this at nighttime. So just before you fall into deep sleep, into a deep REM sleep, you are entering into that world of your subconscious. And so I use this technique, or ask people to use this technique, is when they go into bed to start thinking about what they want to achieve, where they want to direct their mind, and then allow it to happen while they're sleeping. So it's the subconscious we're trying to talk to. And it's interesting because we think we're in charge half the time. And a lot of the times we're not exactly in charge. We're programmed to do something else. And that sounds kind of robotic, but that's not the intent. Once we learn how to talk to it, we can then change it in a positive light.
Yeah, no, totally. You're speaking my language. I have clients journal and meditate on, their dream life right before going to bed, because you're spending 8 hours literally in your subconscious, and it'll change your life if you do that.
Yeah.
Like really, really does change your life. So tell me a little bit more about the My Growth Corporation. Like, what are you doing during, in that to help people?
So I spent the last few years building out a new ecosystem, or I call it an ecosystem. We have quite a few components to it. We're building the last component, and then it all falls into place. So you mentioned Mind Growth 360. It's a social network. It's still fairly new, but it's been around for a while, but it's not something that's been pushed yet because we're building the last component of everything. We have a lot of social media nowadays. It's sometimes more noise than anything else, and it isn't focused on our area of developing ourselves. So Mind Growth 360 is just for personal development. It allows people to put podcasts on there, their courses on there, but also like a Facebook, you can just talk to people. It's free to join. It allows people to interact, and there isn't the other noise of, if you took a Facebook, which is still being used, but it's still noise because I got distracted. Oh, my cousin's doing this, or it's not the form of personal development. Then we've got Creators Agency, and Creators Agency essentially is an agency for small business people like coaches and all people in our industry, no matter what it was, what it is, spirituality, etc., who are saying, well, I can't afford the big agencies. Or I want someone who gets personal development, understands what we're doing. So we have lots of different services. It's if you go to creatorsagency.studio, you'll see different services around doing your social media, etc. All the things that you need as a small business person, so having a website, all those type of things. We have it there for personal development, and people can buy those services. At the moment, we're working on. Well, we also have a directory. So you think of things like product review directory, where you're writing reviews on businesses. This is the same thing, but for personal development. And when I talk about personal development, I talk about anything and everything someone wants to grow in. So it could be even in the beauty industry, whereby you're saying, well, I want to learn how to do this. This allows companies to list themselves. They pay for that, but people using it don't pay for it. And then they can say, well, I'm trying to find an area in LA that does this, does coaching in this area. They can find these businesses and we can match them. And then they can write about the experience if they want. So that's personaldevelopmenthouse.com. And the final one we're working on is a new app. And the app is around speeding up the learning of individuals. So we've designed this for individuals, for businesses of all sizes, and schools and universities. And this is not necessarily a new concept. Maybe our design is. I don't know if you're familiar with flashcards. Essentially, yeah, most people are. Essentially, there's two components to it. The first component is I've got to learn something reasonably quickly, but maybe I find learning boring. So the flashcard essentially it's AI driven. So you can upload a document or you can ask for it to teach you on a topic. It will come up with a series of lessons for you, and then you can start it. And it goes into a self-paced learning with quizzes. So I'll have like 4 answers, you answer them, and it allows you to learn at your own pace. We then take it to another step, and we do what we call battles or trivia battles, whereby you're taking the same information. So you can put any type of information within reason. You can keep it in your own private library just for yourself to use, or you can use it publicly, which we approve. And you could go online in the individual side. You could go online, and you could be online, and you could. There's about 20 divisions of people that we're going to have, that people move their way up a leaderboard, and we can have the same questions, and we battle out. We compete against each other, and you can compete up to 3 other people. And then we have the school version and the business version, where you can have unlimited, where whole schools a teacher can basically take a classroom and set up teams. They can set up their own teams, and then they get the analytics that tells them this student really hasn't improved from their self-paced learning to going into a pressure, like an exam position. And so they can start to monitor it and speed up the learning of an individual and help the person. But it's also a game environment. So there's game mechanics that allows them to try to move ahead and move up leaderboards, etc.
Wow, you've got a lot. Very cool. Well, thanks for explaining all that. So thinking about like the motivation side of it, if you wanted to go on there, you personally, Manny, were like, I'm going to go on here and like share something that's really motivational to me. Like, what are the top 5 books and courses that you would share with people on there?
Well, I must admit, I probably use the internet more than I used to use in regards to books. So a lot of my reading was back in my, 30s, etc. I used to read 40, 50 books a year. It depends on the area that you're trying to develop. I originally would have read a Tony Robbins, but some of his books were really NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. That's what he was really writing about in his original books, not necessarily his later books. Tony's I've seen Tony live as well. He's fantastic. if you want to talk about, if you go back to the mind-body connection, since we talked about that earlier, I'd read Bruce Lipton's books. You've met Bruce. Bruce is fantastic because he gives you the science behind it as well. He explains how we're altering our own bodies. So I loved his stuff when that first came out. I read a lot of his stuff then.
He's also very sweet in person.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah,
well, you've
he's
met
like
all these
very, very
people.
kind.
Well, they're all probably out your way anyhow, or in your country, but they're they're smart people who get it. It isn't, it isn't all marketing. There's something behind it. So Bruce's work is really important if you want to get what the mind's doing and how it's affecting the body itself. Then if you look at, there's books like The Magic, it's called The Magic of Thinking Big. It's been a long time since I read that book, so I couldn't even tell you the ins and outs of it. It's David Schwartz, if I'm correct.
I haven't read that yet. The Magic
It's
of
very
Thinking
old. It's
Big.
an old book. It's an old book, but so I couldn't even tell you the modern day authors because I just don't read their books. I just have so much on the go that I don't have time to read their books anymore. But I don't think there isn't necessarily a lot of new things. A lot of it is old but repackaged in some ways. You talked again, since we've been talking about the body, Louise Hay, because you mentioned about the stomach example that you gave before. Louise Hay was probably the first to write about that, and that's a great book. And I have that somewhere here at home that she recognised, because she went through trauma as a young adult herself. She recognised this in other people, that how they're thinking and what they've been through is affecting different parts of the body. So that's a I can't think what it's called. Healing.
You can heal your life.
Heal your life. That's it. Yep. Mm-hmm. So she's another great one to read if you haven't read her stuff. I'm just trying to think top of my head because I wasn't prepared for this one, but there's growth comes in different elements. I mean, there's understanding money. I like Robert Kiyosaki. In my much younger years, and I had a very big corporate background, I was a financial planner for a few years, and I used to talk to Robert Kiyosaki's work. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he still has a podcast.
Great book.
Yeah, he gets it. There's a lot of people that, as I said, in that field who are great at marketing, and we think we should follow them in our thousands, but they're really just fast talkers. There's not a lot of substance behind it. I think Robert Kiyosaki actually gets it from a financial perspective. So there's three. I'm probably not going to get to your five because I can't think.
I think you gave me five actually.
Did I?
Yeah, you gave me Tony and Bruce and The Magic of Thinking Big, which I hadn't heard of. I'm excited. I love hearing about new books, and Louise Hay and Robert Kiyosaki. So, you made me think as you were talking, because you did bring up Louise Hay. Like, how important do you think spirituality is to healing?
I don't know where I read it, but I read it a long time ago, and they said a lot of the top CEOs, now maybe this has changed, were actually, now there's a definition between spirituality and being religious, I think, because one is more dogmatic than the other. But all of them had a faith, because I think when you believe in something, it changes things. So I can talk about this with entrepreneurs, for example. A lot of entrepreneurs are really smart people, but there's also some that are not so smart but still become very, very wealthy. So it's not their intelligence necessarily, it's more their street smarts, I suppose, but it's also their belief in themselves. It's what you don't know that you don't realize something, like if you don't know you're not that intelligent and you think you're super intelligent, we look at those people and go, oh my God, I got to listen to this person talk. Having said that, they're really successful. It's because they believe, and belief is really important in regards to being successful in life. Now, sorry, I don't know if I've answered your question, or you may want to repeat it if I haven't.
No, I think you did. Sorry, you said something that I wanted to ask a follow-up and it just totally went out of my head. Oh, I remember. But before that, you were talking about how many CEOs have, a connection with something higher, and you made me think about my husband recently started a company with his former CEO, and she's this badass woman, and she's very religious though, but she takes like so many risks because she's like, it doesn't matter, when I die, I'm going to Jesus. So but I think that that's really important in an entrepreneur to be able to take risks.
Well, yes, entrepreneurs need to take risks. They take calculated risks.
Right.
I think what happens is, if you talk about entrepreneurship, is we all have ideas that we think we could do something, and a lot of us try it and then fail, and we give up or try again, and then after all, we just give up. And I think that's the problem, and this is part of the conditioning about when I talk about microcongruency, is that if you set yourself a goal and a path to go on, you're fighting another part of you that says, no, you're going to fail. It's that little voice in your head we talk about. Mm-hmm. It's actually ourselves. And entrepreneurs have a different mindset. Their mindset is, no one likes failure, but I'm not going to stop. I know this can work. I just have to find a way to make it work. And I think that mindset is where they find success. And most of us fail because most of us just go, you know what, I'll just go back to 9 to 5. It's safer. It's easier. It's what my parents told me I should have done.
Totally. So you were talking earlier too about like how entrepreneurs have this like undying belief and like confidence in themselves, or just successful people, right? Which kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just saying. Like, if someone's listening and they're like, I want that kind of belief, like, how does someone grow that belief in themselves?
It is repetition. So if I take my own story, both my parents, so I didn't, my mother had been a school teacher. My father had worked in a factory. So we didn't come from money. We didn't come from something. But my mother was the one that instilled in me that I could be more. So she's part of that story in many ways. And I think how do you get to that point is it's a matter of, so in my own story, I worked in corporations for over 30 years. I rose to executive levels, so I took that with me. But I tried several times along the way with different side things, like I try a different thing, and because I wanted to be this entrepreneur and I wanted to build these businesses. But in the back of my mind was always get a safe job. Not that I was ever told that, but it was imprinted on me. And that's what we do with our children. We imprint our own thinking on them. So, and it isn't always verbal. So when I was a child, I remember it, but I never gave it any thought, is my father worked in a factory, unionized factory. Union loved taking them out on strike for a month or so. And I remember Mum and I having this conversation where she said to me, we went through a period that your father was out of work, not because he was not working, it's because he was on strike for over a month. We were running out of money. I would go to the government and say, look, I've got kids, I need to pay for these things, because Mum didn't work during this period. When I was born, she stopped working. And the government just said, your husband's got a job. There's nothing we can do to help you. And so even though no one would have ever discussed that with me, and I would have been a young child, I probably would have heard conversations, and my subconscious that was fully open at this point was just getting it imprinted on me. Yeah. So I always looked to rise through the corporate world, and I did that. But there's always been this, but I'm more than that. I can do more than that. And for me to get to this point, I had to get getting hit. Sometimes you lose jobs along the way, especially at executive levels. They restructure. Finance in Australia world, which is where I was, restructure every year. They get rid of a whole team and then they start again. Or
Crazy.
that does happen. That happened to me in my last role. They wiped out half the managers, kept some of them, and those managers are all gone since as well. So eventually you say, okay, I feel like I'm at the end. I've done what I've done where I've been. And it's like burning your bridges. It's like the story of, if you've ever seen the movie Troy with Brad Pitt. No? Okay. Well, the reason I was trying to tell the story is because it is a story where the Greeks, I think if I'm right about the story, the Greeks destroy all their ships. So they've landed to fight, Troy, whatever they're fighting. And they realise that they either fight to survive or they're going to die. And I think that's what happens in life. Is sometimes you just get to a point, and we look at it from a spiritual perspective, sometimes it's the sign that we needed to say it's time to change.
Tony Robbins tells that story, but I thought it was the French. I didn't realize it was the Greeks.
That could be a different story.
Where it's like they burn their ships.
Well, that could be a completely different story. I'm not familiar with the French doing that, but it could be true.
Yeah, maybe I have it wrong. But it's like they're in some battle and they're totally outnumbered and the commander burned all their ships, so they had no choice but to fight and they ended up winning.
That's probably, I haven't heard about that one in the French, but that's quite possible. But it's the same mentality. I
thought it was the French, but I might be wrong. If you're listening, you can Google it.
Oh, it could be the French. I'm not going to pretend that I know that story. But it really is about saying, you know what, the past is my past. I need to move forward, and I'm going to hit brick walls. But guess what? If you've ever read, and I've read a lot of stories in my time of those that, a lot of them Americans are billionaires. We don't necessarily always like them and their personalities, but that's not the story. And the story is they came up against walls. And most of us try to hit it and they go, oh, it's not working. All right, I'll go back and do something else, or I'll try something else. If your energy is intent and is focused towards something, it changes, because we are all vibrational beings. We're all energy. So if you want to leave your energy as it is, then you get the same result. The moment you learn to change that energy and that vibrational energy, changes life. Now, you've talked about The Secret. I also have written spiritual books, so I get this stuff as well. And this is why I think this is what may be missing in the movie The Secret, is the alignment. Because until you have aligned your minds, it then doesn't change the vibrational energy, because you're fighting yourself and you're not moving to the next level.
Totally. I think The Secret also misses that, like, you have to take some sort of action. The universe isn't kind of this genie in a bottle, right? You have to take steps towards what you want.
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry. That's all right.
I was just going to say, so like, I like that you brought up aligning changing your vibrational energy. So the way that, my question was like, how does someone do that? And is it just that matter of aligning the conscious and subconscious mind, or is there something else that you recommend?
It's emotion.
Yeah.
You get that? Okay. And I had to learn that. And I learned that in the last few years. So I wrote a book 4 years ago. It's a spiritual book, but it's a story. And you know why I've written a story now, why I did it in story form. But it was an interesting concept, because I don't know why I started it. I just come out of a relationship, and I decided I wanted to write. And I started writing, but I write two types of books. I write nonfiction, and this is a fiction book. And when I've written fiction books, it's not like I'm writing the story. It's like something else writes the story, which sounds pretty weird.
I love it.
but you might get it. It's that, so most times when you write a book, you write your chapters, you write what's going to go in your chapters, your heading, maybe your characters, and then you write it. I did this differently. I probably came up with a character name, had maybe an inkling, but I pretty much went into trance state. I would go in and write, and I could see the story in front of me, and I just wrote what I was watching. So I don't know if that's normal for other authors, but this only happens when I write fiction, not when I write nonfiction. When I wrote it, a story came out which I wasn't even expecting. It was designed to teach spiritual concepts, and it does do that. And it talks about manifestation, it talks about health, it talks about a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of it came from my subconscious, but as I said earlier, I believe the subconscious is connected to higher consciousness. So if there is that connection, then it was just downloaded to me, and I was just writing what I saw.
Love it. I love it. No, that's the best. I've had experiences like that too with writing as well. And when you're in that flow state and yeah, it just feels like a download. That's so cool. I mean, it just shows that like you were meant to write that book. You were meant to like share that with the world. That's part of your purpose, right?
I think so too.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is a question that I ask quite a few people that come on the show because it's interesting. You know, let's say that someone, they've aligned their conscious and subconscious, and they have that belief in themselves and that mindset and that drive, and they have that vision, and they're working towards it, but it just hasn't freaking happened yet. Like maybe like the money hasn't come in, or they haven't like broken through in front of the right audience or something. Like, what kind of advice do you have for those people?
The analogy I give is that now I'm not a gardener, but when people garden, they put a seed in, or seeds in, and they water it, and eventually it grows. But imagine this scenario. Let's say we put some seeds in the ground. Let's say you and I went to the garden. We said, we're going to grow this. We go do this. And then a week later we go, we don't have a tree. Why don't we have a tree? We already put our seeds in. Why is it not there? So we go, you know what? Let's just kick the dirt. Let's just walk away. Let's go do something else because we wanted a tree and it didn't happen. Now, what we were not seeing is we had started the germination period. We do this with thought. So we had put the seeds in. That was our thought. We had put our emotion behind, we're going to see this beautiful tree, which is, again, our thought and our connection and change of vibration. But then what we then do is we go, you know what? We're not seeing it in the physical world immediately because we're kind of impatient, and today's society is even more impatient about having something straight away. So we go to something, we change our thinking, we go, let's do something else. And that's not uncommon because take anyone who's been successful in this world, go read their story, their backstory, not the story of success. Because we look at everybody and say, look how successful they are. Look at all the money they've got. Look at all the things that they've done. I met a multimillionaire here in quite a few years ago. He was in marketing or media. And I met him for something else. It was had to do with money, but I was talking to him. And I said, you know, you've had a fascinating career. He was, I don't know how old he was at the time. Maybe he was in his 70s. And he said, Manny, it was a 40-year exercise. He goes, I didn't get instant success. We do see some people with instant success, but he said, I spent 40 years building something from nothing. So eventually a much larger company came along and said, I want to buy that from you. And that's why he was so wealthy. And that's a little bit like manifesting things in life. We all want it instantly. Me too, by the way. You know, there's times you sort of think, why is it not happening? I have to understand that I have germinated the idea and the thought. And I have to remember that it is growing its roots. But if I kill it off too early, then I'm the reason that there's no success, not everybody else around me.
I love that answer. So to kind of bring that metaphor into real life, like if you've planted that seed, the idea of like to continue to water it, like just keep feeding it your energy, keep working on it? Is that kind of what you mean?
I do, but I also think it's about changing your thinking. So think about yourself. You mentioned at the very start of this program, all these people that you now know, because somewhere along the way, you were open enough and made a decision to maybe even step outside your own comfort zone and work with these other people. It may not have happened straight away. Maybe you did volunteering, which is how you met these people, but you decide to make this opening, which a lot of us might go, oh yeah, but that won't work. And we do that with a lot of things in our lives. Oh, that won't work. Because because our conditioning, our operating system is, for some of us, has been designed that way or has been programmed that way. And I talk about this in the book about a friend that I used to have for many, many years from school. He's a great guy, but he was a person that would find something new he really, really wanted to do. And he would go and research it and research it. He'd ask your opinion on it. He'd research it. For 12 months, he'd research something. And after 12 months, he'd come back and go, oh, it's not going to work.
It's a lot of time to devote.
Well, this is just his conditioning, right? And I knew his family, etc., his parents. His father was a successful executive in media. But he treated his children differently, which is interesting. And he treated my friend in a certain way. And he treated the youngest one differently and put him on the pedestal. So the youngest one became successful in his own right, or became very good, had great belief systems. My friend didn't. And one day we were in my kitchen. I was in my apartment at the time, and he was sitting there talking about something, and I said, do you realize that you talk positive all the time, but you're actually one of the most negative people I've ever met? And he goes, yeah, I know. Because his subconscious, his programming or his autopilot was set at a certain level, and he wasn't sure how to fly higher, even though he wanted to.
I know people like that who they'll post like all the positive personal development memes out there, but then you talk to them and have a conversation, and there's just like so much self-doubt and hatred and anger and sabotage.
This is why we talk about mind congruency and this alignment, because this alignment takes you to what I call a focused mind. You want to get to the level of all these things you just talked about and this change of vibration. It's very hard to do when you say, I'm going in this direction, and the conditioning and the operating system says, there is no way we're going there. We're not good enough.
So quick question then, how does someone know if their conditioning is saying that?
Listen. Pay attention.
Give me an example.
Well, I use it with language. This is maybe a silly example, but I've used it before. A long time ago, I worked with someone, and she used to use, she always sounded really positive because she used to use the word absolutely. So you'd say, can you go and do this and da-da-da. She worked with me for a very short period. I was training her. And she goes, yep, absolutely, I can go ahead and do that, da-da-da. And she was a very positive person. And I'm going, oh, that's a kind of a cool statement, but that's not part of my language. I know the word, but I don't use it. And so what I started to do is when I thought it was appropriate, I would catch myself before I used the word I would normally use, and I changed it with the new word. And to reprogram, we need to bring it to conscious level. We are unaware of how we operate. If you have a computer in front of you, it's got operating systems and it's operating a certain way. Do we know what it's doing and what's doing? No, we're just looking at the output. We're just going, am I getting what I want from it? When you start to dig deeper and go, hold on, the programming isn't right if you're a programmer. If the programming isn't right, this is why I'm not getting the result that I want. And so we need to look at our own programming, pay attention to it. That's the awareness bit that I talked about at the start. become aware of how you operate. So think about, I don't know if this child is your first child, but
I'm pregnant with my second.
oh,
Yeah, but I have a
congratulations.
toddler. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Another reason I'm tired.
Okay. So these children are going to be influenced by what they observe.
Yeah.
And they're going to develop programming. You have an opportunity to pay attention as to what they see. So give an example. You know, we drive cars, and sometimes some of us are very calm drivers no matter what happens, and some of us just swear at everything on the road, right? Who do you think is watching all that when they're sitting in the back seat? Who'll probably imitate that when they start driving, because that's the programming you gave them. Not intentionally. You weren't going, now pay attention. Next time someone does this, you swear at them on the road. We are giving this programming to them. So we need to become aware of, oh, I'm doing this. I need to stop this. Let's change it. Let's repeat it. Let's get into the subconscious mind until eventually there's a congruency between what I want to achieve and what I'm designed or programmed to achieve. And that applies to everything in life. And then from a spiritual perspective, when there's this alignment, that's how manifestation takes place. That's why, even though The Secret was a great movie, and I remember when it came out, it was a big thing to come out. And by the way, you know, that was done by an Australian.
Nice. Very cool.
It was actually built for Australian television originally, but they rejected it. And that's why they went and turned it into a movie. So if you're wanting to manifest, and that came originally from, I don't know if you're familiar with Esther Hicks, if you know that name.
Yep.
So that's where who's what they based the information on. But then there was a conflict between the two of them.
Based The Secret on, you're talking about?
Yes, the Secret was based on Esther Hicks' work.
That's
Esther
cool.
Hicks and that then had a disagreement over something, and they cut Esther Hicks out, and they did their own movie. But
well, Esther's doing pretty good, so.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. I haven't seen her name for a long time, but I'm sure she does.
I was actually just scrolling through TikTok before this, and it was like an old interview with Wayne Dyer. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, Wayne Dyer was a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. It so much of what you talk about, I write in my own book. We're like very, very aligned, and I love that you brought up how important language is. Like the language we think, we speak, we write. There's that metaphor, like it's like casting spells, right? That's why they call it spelling, because you're like literally putting that out into the universe and into your subconscious mind. So, yeah, and I think just kind of like bringing it back to the last question I asked, like if someone's kind of feeling like stuck and it's just like they're not getting that breakthrough. It sounds like your advice is to kind of like look back on your thinking, look back, make sure everything is aligned. Do I kind of have that correctly?
Yes, but also become quiet. So you talked about meditation earlier, and I talk about that in my book as well, is that our world is a busy world and our minds become so engaged in so many things, and we've got so much being thrown at us. I mean, you just said you're on TikTok. Well, that is now today's world. We are bombarded with information from so many different things. So, you know, if you go back 60, 70 years, it was called the newspaper, and you usually got it once a day, and the rest of it was talking to people that you spoke to. Today, it's instant information. And our mind doesn't slow down. It's no longer focused. It has too much information that is bombarding us, and we need to learn to become silent and quiet again. When it quietens down, it allows for something else to open up.
Yeah, that's very, very brilliant and important. Just thinking back on all the books you recommended, one I would add to that list is I love Joe Dispenza's work so much. And are you familiar with his work?
No.
Joe Dispenza?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
He's become very big in this.
He's got some great meditations.
Yeah, so Joe's. I remember Joe originally from The Secret. I think that's where I first saw
He
him.
was from What the Bleep, do we know?
Oh, that's it. Yes, I saw him in that too. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
That was a cool movie.
Yeah, he got a lot of negative press from that, actually.
From What the Bleep?
But it made him up. It made him, yeah, there was a lot of, like, there's two camps of people. People either, like, love that movie or hated it. I loved it, personally.
I loved
just
it.
like you.
But then there's a story behind the founders of that movie too, which probably gave them the negative part.
Yeah. I've had someone else on my show who was part of that, like, school that put it on, like, kind of came up with Joe.
Okay.
So yeah. I think, I mean, the cool thing about The Secret and What the Bleep is it brought the law of attraction and manifestation and spirituality and quantum physics, like, into the conversation, right? Into the mainstream conversation, which is just.
Well, we weren't talking about those things until those two movies came up, The Secret and What the Bleep. I think what the disservice The Secret gave is everyone thought it was instantaneous.
Yeah.
If I just thinking and put it out there, I'm going to get my, the image was almost, I'm going to get my car within a week. I go, no, it doesn't kind of work that way because thought is germination, energy is emotion. And when you learn to combine it, then it can't, you've got to remember you're aligning different things in this world. So if you're wanting something to happen in this world, you germinate, you change vibration, you put that out there, but then you need all the other things are now starting to align, which is why it's not always instantaneous.
Okay, so to play devil's advocate, and I know we're getting close on time.
That's fine.
So one of my mentors is Mary Morrissey. I don't know if you're familiar with Mary's work. She's been around forever. So she was one.
Actually, I think I know who you're talking about. Yep.
She's been around a long time. She's in her 70s now. She was one of 3 people mentored directly by Bob Proctor, and when he passed away, she officiated his funeral. Like, they're very, very close.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
So if you ever go watch it on YouTube, it's beautiful. She's the officiant, but she, she's big, like Tony Robbins. She has courses, she has events, like she speaks on stages about, like, the law of attraction, but without calling it that, right? And she tells this story where, like, Bob was definitely her mentor, and he was like, so what's next for you? And she was like, oh, I want to build this, like, amazing, kind of like a church, and it's going to be this big community. And, like, she had this whole vision, and she was like, that's my, like, 10-year vision or something. And Bob was like,
why 10 years?
Well, if you make it a 10-year vision, you're going to finish it in 10 years.
Great.
Like, what makes you think that you need 10 years? And she's like, oh, I need, like, the funding and, like, the plans, and I got to find the property and all this stuff. And he was basically, like, kind of, like, talked her out of it. And she ended up completing the entire project in 8 months. So, because of his mentorship. So I agree with you that, the universe isn't this genie in a bottle where you can just, like, tell it what you want and then, like, kind of kick back, put your feet up, and just, like, wait for it to fall into your lap. You have to take action, and you have to align everything, like we've been talking about. But I think we also can make things happen a lot faster than we give ourselves credit for.
This is why I talk about my congruency, because what you just described with Bob and her was the alignment of her mind. Her mind had said, this is a 10-year project. Bob changed the thinking, aligned her thinking to no, there's a shorter time frame. When that changed, she then changed her manifestation. So that is mind congruency. That's what I talk about.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm like holding both of these things at the same time. Like, yeah, things aren't instantaneous. And the whole idea of, like, planting a seed and, like, the whole metaphor with the garden you talked about, like, I get that, right? Because we're in physical reality and things take time. But also, like, I think miracles can happen and things can happen really quick.
I do not doubt that for a moment. So don't get me wrong. It's the way the movie portrayed things.
Yeah.
As if, because we are in the physical world, not the metaphysical world. We're in the physical world, things take longer. It's a heavier thing than if we were non-body, for example.
Yeah.
So can things be quicker? Absolutely, because it's what we believe. And it's a little bit like health. You know, we can think ourselves into illness, right? You know, we talk about people that are hypochondriacs. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people that are healthy that think they're sick all the time. That's got nothing to do with the truth. That's got to do with their own personal truth of what they're believing. And so belief is something that also sits in the subconscious. And this is why I emphasize the transformation of the mind, because when you transform it, you transform different things, and that different things then align with each other.
Yeah, totally. Just to bring it back to Bruce Lipton, he talks about that a lot, right? Like the nocebo effect. You can actually make yourself sick.
Correct.
And you can make yourself better too.
Well, if you talk about placebo effect, if you're familiar with Richard Bandler from neurolinguistic programming, right? Well, Richard Bandler is one of the founders. And Richard Bandler, if I remember correctly, had said, I wish I could market a pill called placebo, because I could probably change, I don't know exact wording, but it's something that I could change people just by giving them a pill, a sugar pill. And if they believe that it's going to work, then they'll change themselves. Yeah. Because our belief systems has a lot to do with our results.
So powerful, yeah. I feel like we could talk forever, but I just realized we're at the 1 hour mark. I want to respect your time. I'm gonna go take a nap after this. I told Manny in the green room, my toddler had me up from 1 to 5 last night, so I'm a little tired. But it's been a great conversation, and I'm sure people want to know where they can find you online, where they can connect with you. So if you want to just take a moment to share.
Yeah, sure. Probably go to mygrowthcorporation.com. There you'll find all our offerings, and you can find, and it'll take you to my own personal website, etc. So I do trainings and stuff like that as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'll have all that in the show notes, as well as your extended bio. And if you're driving, you can check it out later. But yeah, if this resonated and there's someone in your life you think would love it, send it to them, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's help lift humanity up. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. I'll see you next week.